Why does the left hate Christopher Columbus? For centuries, Christopher Columbus was revered as a brave explorer, a brilliant navigator, and a skilled mapmaker. But what changed? Why does the American left demonize him? Are their accusations substantial, or is there a hidden agenda? To answer the questions, we must first explain the origins of the radical left. And to do that will take us all the way back to Karl Marx, the author of Marxism. Dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun, dun a cool intro here. Marxism is predicated on the belief that the world is moving toward an inevitable utopia. Marx argued, alongside his counterpart Friedrich Engels, through books such as Das Kapital and The Communist Manifesto, that since the world will one day be perfect, the highest moral purpose of the human race is to speed up that process. Now, it is important to note that Marxism believes the human spirit to be naturally good and perfectible. Therefore, the idea of striving toward a utopia is not out of the realm of possibility. The obvious questions now are, well, how do we speed up that process? And if humans are naturally good, why is there so much evil in the world? Those questions bring us to the crux of the Marxist argument. Marxism says that the root cause of evil are the economic systems in place around you. In order to understand Marx, you must understand the times in which he lived. During the years he was developing his ideas, the Industrial Revolution was in high gear. Workers started moving from the farms and into the factories, and with every new industry, you will always have your problems and chinks in the armor. For example, employers could more easily take advantage of their employees by subjecting them to harsh work environments and underpaid service with little to no consequences. Observing the growing pains of a budding industry, Marx was appalled at the inequality of outcome between the employers and their employees. While the employers made off with the greatest portion of the wealth, securing their elite status, the employees suffered health problems at the hands of their poor work experience. In other words, the Pareto principle was proved true. To Marx, the only solution was to tear it all down. That is where the analogy of the oppressors versus the oppressed comes into play. Picture the employers as the oppressors and the employees as the oppressed. Marxism says that to quicken the pace toward utopia, the oppressed must throw off the shackles that have been placed on them by their oppressors. They must rise up and destroy the economic system that has held them back for so long. Only then will true freedom finally be attained. For true freedom is to be your own God. This echoes what Jean-Jacques Rousseau, the 18th century Swiss philosopher, who said, quote, "Man is born free, and everywhere he is in chains." Let us now fast forward to the Frankfurt School of Germany in the 1930s. A political philosopher very instrumental to the modernization of Marxism was one of its prominent members, Herbert Marcuse. Herbert Marcuse, following the Second World War, immigrated over to America, and with him came his neo-Marxist ideas. As Marxism became more popular among the European academics, Herbert Marcuse, through the Frankfurt School of Critical Theory, theorized that the Marxist theory of class struggle could also be applied to social issues, such as feminism, religion, the family, and most importantly, race. Marx only saw his ideas economically, whereas Herbert Marcuse and others like him broadened the landscape to encompass all walks of life. This now brings us full circle back to the question we began by asking. Why does the left hate Columbus? In broadened terms, neo-Marxism is our culprit. Remember, Marxism believes in an inevitable utopia, and the only thing holding civilization back from that are the systems around us. To Marx, those systems were economic, but to Marcuse, those systems were social constructs. For example, race is without a doubt the most potent and prevalent form of neo-Marxism today. This ideology tells us that white people are the oppressors and the minorities are the oppressed. Therefore, we must band together and destroy the white supremacy that holds us back in society. We must reject the past evils of the white supremacist, bigoted, slave-owning founding fathers that founded this horrible country in order to be truly free. A neo-Marxist view of the race struggle condemns any and all persons in the past who even came close to participating in what they deem as minority oppression. This is why the left hates Columbus. In the words of Michael Knowles, Columbus embodies everything the left hates. I mean, it's true. He was white, he was a devout Catholic, he participated in what they say is minority oppression, and he founded Western civilization. Without Christopher Columbus, we would not have Western civilization. And it makes sense that all the Marxists hate him, because Marxists hate Western tradition. Because the reason Marxists hate it is because they know that Western tradition points out the flaws in their argument. While a majority of the accusations thrown at Columbus are either completely false or simply exaggerated, he still provides the perfect target for many of the left's attacks. Columbus was a genocider. Columbus was a child rapist. Columbus was a slave trader. Broadly speaking, these accusations encompass the majority of their arguments. The left will say that Columbus was responsible for the death of millions of natives. The left conflates genocide with the accidental spreading of disease. While it is no doubt deeply unfortunate, the disease that Columbus and those who followed him were not at all understood by them. Genocide is the intentional murdering of a specific race or ethnicity. The left likes to say that he killed millions of people, but those numbers are deeply exaggerated and incorrect. It is estimated that over the course of a couple hundred years of Europeans coming to the New World, only about 800,000 natives were actually killed, either from firearms or disease. But that's over the course of 200 years, and definitely not just Columbus. In regards to the sexual assault allegations toward Columbus, the left likes to pick one sentence that Columbus wrote in his personal journal, then takes it wildly out of context. Quote, "And there are plenty of dealers who go about looking for girls. Those from 9 and 10 are now in demand, and for those a good price must be paid." End quote. However, if you keep reading, the left's argument falls apart completely. Quote, "I assert that the violence of the calumny of turbulent persons has injured me more than my servances have profited me, which is a bad example for the present and for future age." End quote. When the left says that he cut off the ears and noses of colonists, remember this. Columbus did that as a punishment towards those Europeans who sexually abused those girls and acted like pimps. The accusation of slave trader has the most evidence, however, not to the extent that most believe. To clarify, I will be addressing only the things that relate to Columbus directly. I believe it is wrong to lump all of the sins of his fellow sailors and Europeans who came after him all on Columbus, just one man. That's completely and wildly unfair. No matter how atrocious the things that those Europeans did were, it is simply not right. The left will say that Columbus enslaved hundreds of natives and brought them back to Spain after his first voyage. They say that only 6 survived the entire trip because everyone else died on the ship. This is in parts a lie, but mostly just a deep exaggeration. Columbus only ever intended to subjugate these natives under European culture. He never enslaved them, and he never intended to. While they were forced to do hard labor, nobody ever owned them. That is very important to understand. He also sought to convert them to Christianity because he didn't think they had a religion of their own, which they didn't really, other than just, eating children, but that's another point. Also, he actually did only bring 6 natives over with him to Spain. We know this because 2 months before his voyage home, he wrote in his diary, quote, "If it pleases our Lord, I intend at my return to carry him home 6 of them to your highness, that they may learn our language." End quote. Do these facts justify Columbus? Of course not. However, what he did, he thought was right. It is important to specify that he was no monster with a deep intention of enslaving the natives. That is very important to understand. In another instance, the mayor of one of Columbus's settlements literally planned a revolt against Columbus, and in order to stop it, Columbus had to submit to humiliating and horrible terms, one of which led to a large group of natives being enslaved. So if Columbus is guilty of anything, he's guilty of being a weak and passive governor. If the left truly cared about educating you on the, quote, right side of history, then they would be logically consistent. and they wouldn't have to take phrases out of context in order to do it. They don't demonize Karl Marx for allowing his family to live in poverty, resulting in the death of 4 of his children. They refuse to demonize Martin Luther King Jr. for cheating on his wife with many different women. To the left, Columbus is the oppressor of all the oppressed indigenous people. The left sees it as their duty to liberate the indigenous people from Columbus, since those generations are no longer here to do it themselves. However, in the repercussions of the solution, we see the fatal flaw of the Marxist theory of class struggle. Once the oppressed have overthrown their oppressor, there is but one group that will inevitably take their place. The oppressed become the oppressors. Columbus Day becomes Indigenous Peoples Day. The sinful pattern of human nature repeats itself. Ecclesiastes 1:9 says, quote, "What has been done is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done, and there is nothing new under the sun." I'm Sam Mealy with Turning Point USA. Thank you.